Amigos, me encuentro con una persona que ha dado mucho de qué hablar en el mundo. Él es el Doctor Joe, conocido, y hoy vamos a conocer de qué se trata su trabajo y cuál es la magia que hace. Hi, Doctor Joe, how are you?
Very good, Alex. I'm very happy to be with you.
Welcome to Mañana. Welcome to Panama. How's your Spanish?
Más o menos okay.
Más o menos, okay. That's good. That's good enough. Bien, suficientemente bien. Tell me, there is a lot of talk about Dr. Joe and what he does. Tell me what you do. What is so great about the work that you've been doing?
Yes, my interest really is to give people the tools to empower them to create the life that they want. And I use science as the contemporary model to demystify that process so that people have within their reach those tools to begin to apply them practically to their lives. And so this is a time in history, I feel like, where it's not enough to know. It's a time in history to know how. And what is the concept of change? How do we truly change? What does it mean to change? And if we do change, does our life change? And if we do make a significant amount of changes in the way we think, the way we act, and the way we feel, will
Mhm.
there be changes in our health and in our body? And our scientific investigation, without a doubt, along with the testimony with many people that have applied these principles, shows that it's actually possible. So I'm excited because it's a great time for us to give people to empower themselves to create changes in their lives.
Yeah, you've been studying human brains, but when that trigger in you, that investigation, that change that we need to do, and how it was in your life, like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to try to find out something better for the people. How was that call?
Yeah, no, for me, I mean, I got run over by a truck in a triathlon in
Oh, really?
1986. Yeah,
Oh, my God.
and I broke six vertebrae in my spine, and the diagnosis was that I'd probably never walk again. I had bone fragments on my spinal cord, and I broke the neural arch of one vertebrae, so I had cord compression. And the typical procedure for something like this is Harrington rod surgery, which is stainless steel rods that they surgically screw into your spine. And I guess I was young enough and courageous enough and probably ignorant at the same time to think if I'm never going to walk again, why would I actually have the surgery? Let me see if I could affect my body with my mind. And it was way harder than I thought it would be. But after about 6 or 7 weeks, I started to notice some pretty significant changes in my body. And the moment I noticed those changes, I realized that what I was doing somehow was producing an effect. And so I got back on my feet and then started studying spontaneous remissions from diseases. I interviewed hundreds and hundreds of people to find out what it was that they did
Mhm.
that made the big change in the disease. In other words, they were treating conventionally or unconventionally. The disease was there, then all of a sudden it went away. And I wanted to know what the cause was that was producing that effect. So after the interviews, I started realizing that the most common thing that they had was that they really decided to change. And nothing changes in our life until we change. And so by studying those spontaneous remissions, I went very deep into investigation, went back into school, started studying the neuroscience and biology of personal change and transformation. And those same principles, Alex, that I learned many years ago in studying those people that had spontaneous remissions, I thought if it happened to them, and these are the things that they did, if we can teach people to do the same thing, will it work for them? And lo and behold, it actually turned out to be a truth. So yeah, that started my journey.
Some people call you a healer, and when they go to your events or they listen to your meditations, they go through a process. How is that? How do you feel about being called a healer or people being healed when they leave the meetings or they listen to your meditations?
Yeah, I'm certainly not the healer. I think that the healer actually lives innately in every human being.
Yeah.
And my interest, though, is to demystify the process, right? And so, to demystify the process, science has become the contemporary language of mysticism.
Mhm.
And when you combine quantum physics with neuroscience, with neuroendocrinology, with psychoneuroimmunology, that's the mind body connection, with epigenetics, electromagnetism, and you can build a model of understanding and people can understand the what in the why, what they're doing and why they're doing it,
Yeah.
the how becomes very instrumental. And so I'm not the healer in any way. I teach people how to heal themselves.
Mhm.
And for me personally, if you were to ask me, Alex, just a few years ago, if I ever thought that I would see the remarkable changes in people's health, as well as the documentation scientifically to actually show that there is a very strong element that what's going on is scientifically provable, I probably would have said maybe at the end of my lifetime. But when you see stage 4 cancers going into remission, you see people with Parkinson's disease, MS, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, rare genetic disorders, blindness, deafness, when you see people with all kinds of different health conditions change the way they think, the way they act, and the way they feel, and become a different personality, we could say, in a sense, that the disease existed with the other person, and this is a new person.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I've been mystified and overexcited by the process, but it's not me that's doing the healing. It's the power within them that's doing the healing, and I want them to understand how that is and break the indoctrination that we constantly need something outside of us
Mhm.
to change our internal state. And in a sense, we're teaching people how to self-regulate their inner world. And when they do, it starts producing effects not only in their body, but in their lives.
I've never been to a retreat, and what can I expect? And the people who's gonna go when you come to Panama, when they go to your retreat about that weekend, can we be healed in a weekend? Can we get all the information we need?
Well, you'll get a good foundation of the information in the progressive workshop that we're doing in Panama. And I haven't really done one in over 2.5 years here. And uh, I, I, I I want to break it down when we talk about the progressive workshop, because we have to get everybody understanding the science of possibility. So information, knowledge is the forerunner, the precursor to experience. So every time you learn something new, when you learn new information, you make new connections in your brain. That's what learning is. If you
Mhm.
don't repeat that information, if you don't think about it, if you don't review it, those circuits will prune apart within hours or days. So if learning is making connections, then remembering is maintaining it. So we give people the information. We build a model of understanding, and then they have to teach that model back to somebody so that they can say it, if they can repeat it. If you can't repeat it, it's not wired in your brain. So if you can remind yourself, reproduce that same level of mind,
Mhm.
nerve cells that fire together wire together. You begin to install the neurological hardware in your brain in preparation for the experience. So we give people information. We give them the opportunity to teach it back. Once they understand it, we set up the conditions in the environment and we give them the proper instruction. If they can get their behaviors to match their intentions, if they can get their actions equal to their thoughts, if they get their mind and body working together, it makes sense they're going to have a new experience. Now,
Yeah.
experience enriches those philosophical, theoretical circuits in the brain. That's what experience does. And then the end product of an experience is an emotion. And all of a sudden, the person starts feeling elevated. They start feeling gratitude. They start feeling empowered. They start feeling optimistic. Now, the moment they feel that emotion, they're teaching their body chemically to understand what their mind is intellectually understood. So now they're embodying the truth of that knowledge, of that information. If you keep doing it over and over again, it'll become innate in you. It'll become automatic. You'll move into a state of being. You become that knowledge. And so the weekend workshop is an opportunity for people to retreat from their lives for just a few days and remove the same stimulation that reminds them of who they think they are. Give them the knowledge and the information, and give them numerous opportunities to apply it and advance their understanding. And so there'll be different meditations that are taught to
Mhm.
help heal the body. There'll be certainly a way for them to find the present moment where true creation takes place. They can learn how to create a new future or a new reality. They can change their autonomic nervous system and create more hormonal balance, and so on. So there's a lot of activity just in a weekend, but we'll be in and out of meditation the entire time, because we have to disconnect from our outer world. We have to get beyond who we think we are as a personality, and we have to lose track of space and time in order for us to really make those measurable changes. And it turns out if you keep practicing it, you get really good at it.
Yeah. There's a line that I read from you, that the body becomes the mind. That's the, like, wrapping it up. Everything you do is the mind, the body becoming the mind, and having that work in all ourselves.
Yes, it's something that I've studied in detail. Just think about this. Your brain is a record of the past, right? It's a memory bank of everything
Yeah.
you've learned and experienced, right? So people wake up in the morning and they think about their problems. Those problems are memories that are etched in the brain that are connected to certain people and things at certain times and objects and places. So the moment they think about their problems, they're actually remembering the past. Well, the problem is every one of those problems has an emotion associated with it. So that when they feel unhappy, when they feel anxiety, when they feel unworthy, the body is now in the past, because thoughts are the vocabulary of the brain and feelings are the vocabulary of the body, and how we think and how we feel creates our state of being. So it only takes a thought and a feeling, an image and an emotion, a stimulus and a response, and you're conditioning the body subconsciously to become the mind of that emotion. Now, here's the problem. The body's so objective that it doesn't know the difference between the real life experience that's creating that emotion and the emotion that that person is creating by thought alone. The body's believing it's living in the same life, the same environment, right? So then they get up and they do the same routine behaviors. They think a thought, they make a choice, they demonstrate a behavior, they have an experience, and they feel emotion. You keep doing that over and over again. A habit is a redundant set of automatic, unconscious thoughts, behaviors, and emotions that's acquired through repetition. A habit is when you've done something so many times, your body now knows how to do it better than your conscious mind. And so now the body becomes the mind, and it's programmed in the predictable future, or it's conditioned into the familiar past. So if the familiar past is the known and the predictable future is the known, there's only one place where the unknown exists, and that's the sweet spot of the present moment. And that's the place we create in. So we teach people how to become so conscious of their unconscious thoughts, so aware of how they speak, how they behave, so conscious of how they emotionally feel and respond to their life, that they don't go unconscious and fall back to the old self. And in the beginning, it takes a lot of work, but the body, which has been conditioned to be the mind, now the servant is the master. So when you decide to change, the hardest part about change is not making the same choice as you did the day before. And get ready, because the moment you decide to make a different choice, you're going to feel uncomfortable, because you're leaving the familiar known territory and you're stepping into the unknown. Now, the problem with that is that we're creatures, we have this primitive nervous system that says the unknown is a scary place, and it's better to run from the unknown, and the unknown turns on survival, and it turns on stress hormones, and people would rather cling to their suffering, cling to their unworthiness, and tell the story of why they are that way, instead of take a chance and possibility. So we inspire people to step into the unknown, and when they do, of course, they produce magic in their lives.
Do you think it's like resetting the brain, or probably more like relearning, or changing what we know or what we do?
It's both, because you can't have one without the other, right? I mean, you have to really make those particular changes. And when you do, when you make those changes, your brain changes and your body changes. And we have data to suggest that you can make your brain work better in 4 days. In 4 days. We have data to suggest that you can make your immune system 50% stronger in 4 days by trading fear and anxiety or pain and suffering for gratitude, for joy, for an elevated emotion. And we measure that. We actually teach people, how to do that. So it is a process where you can't have one without the other.
Yeah, there is something I learned reading from you about a gland I didn't know about, the pineal gland. What is it, and what is the most important thing to activate? What is important to activate the pineal gland? I don't know about it.
Well, the pineal gland is just a one particular small gland in the back of the brain, but it's not the most important gland to activate. I mean, many people in this work that we teach, to really create a new future requires a very coherent brain and a very coherent heart. And we actually measure and teach people how to create brain coherence. and we teach them how to create heart coherence. And the heart is a really important organ, just as important as the brain. And when we're living in stress and living in survival, we don't feel love, we don't feel gratitude, we don't feel appreciation, we're not kind, and we don't have a whole lot of care for others. And people spend the majority of their time that way. So we find the different organs and systems in the body that we correlate with different intentions. Now, the pineal gland is the gland that sits in the back of the brain that really is responsible for wakefulness and sleep. So you open your eyes in the morning, your eyes perceive the frequency or the wavelength of visible light, and that sends a signal to the brain, and the brain begins to make serotonin, and serotonin is the daytime neurotransmitter. And when it gets dark at night, the inhibition of light all of a sudden causes serotonin by the pineal gland to transmute into melatonin. Melatonin slows our brain waves down and we get sleepy, and that's a time for us to repair and restore and regenerate. Well, that's the basic level here. But inside the pineal gland, there are stacked little crystals, and when they become activated, they begin to act like a radio receiver in the brain. Now, this is nothing uncommon to vertebrates in all kinds of species on this planet. You know, when they pick up an infrared frequency, sometimes through the just by the pineal gland being close to a certain area, there's receptors there that cause them to change the color and be like a chameleon. Pigeons and homing pigeons have little crystals in their brain that help them to navigate true north. So it's an electromagnetic sensor. Now, if it becomes activated in the human being, what we've discovered is all of a sudden it starts to pick up frequencies that are transcendent of our senses. And frequency carries information. So a lot of times that gland acts as the gland that creates the mystical experience, to have an experience transcendent of this space and time. You know, having a lucid moment that seems more real, you and I sitting here right now, and that experience is a very significant brain wave patterns, energy in the brain chemistry, theology, and it somehow causes the person to have an instantaneous change or an upgrade in their health, or a very, very significant change in their past or in their lives. And so we spend quite a bit of time in teaching people how to activate this latent system in the brain. And once activated, the doors of dimension open to people.
Yeah. Throughout the years, what do you think have been your learnings, or what you find out about the brain, and what is people getting to know through your meditations and what you do?
Wow. I don't know if we have enough time for that, but I will tell you without a doubt that anybody can do it.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are. We have people in our community that are 8-year-old kids that come to a week-long event and participate in every meditation and every lecture. And we have people in their 90s that have beautiful, beautiful brain scans. You know, the brain really is, its job is to create meaning between what's going on in our outer world and what's going on in our inner world. And its job is to create coherence between the two. And the problem with most of us is that when we're reacting to conditions and problems in our life and we switch on that fight or flight nervous system, that stress response, stress is created when we can't predict what's going to happen, when we lose control, or we have the perception that something dangerous or something worse is going to happen in our lives. And now, in that state of arousal, we shift our attention from one person, to another thing, to another place, to another time, to another appointment, to a past memory. And every one of those elements has a neurological network in the brain. So the arousal of stress hormones causes the brain to fire like a lightning storm in the clouds, very incoherently. And when the brain is incoherent, we're incoherent. When the brain isn't working right, we're not working right. And the arousal of those hormones causes us to narrow our focus on something. And that narrow focus causes us to become obsessive, or we start overanalyzing and or overthinking. We found out that when you analyze your life within that disturbing emotion, 100% of the time, you're going to make your brain worse. You're going to drive it into more aroused states, because the thinking about that problem is actually producing the same chemicals as if the problem was real. And so we can knock our brain and body out of balance by thought alone. So we've learned that if we teach people had, instead of narrow their focus on an object or something, to open their focus, to broaden their focus and take their attention off everything known and go from a narrow focus to an open focus. By doing that, we see the brain starting to synchronize.
Yeah.
And what syncs in the brain starts to link in the brain, and the brain starts firing more coherently. Now, that helps us to move into a more creative state. And we move out of survival and into a state of creation. We all of a sudden are no longer facing our life from the same level of consciousness that's created the problem. Now we're at a greater level of consciousness. And so we've taught people that they could actually learn how to change their brainwaves. We've actually taught them that they can do it in a very short amount of time. You don't need to be a Buddhist monk or a nun or an academic. We can teach them how to make their brain fire more coherently. We can teach them how to sustain those states. And by the same means, the creation of a new future, the creation of a change in the body requires a clear intention, which is a coherent brain, combined with an elevated emotion. Now, when you feel frustration, when you feel impatience, when you feel resentment, the heart actually beats out of order. Why? Because the heart is believing there's a danger out there, but you're sitting on a Zoom call, or you're sitting in traffic, and you're not fighting, and you're not running, and you're not hiding. And the heart is beating against a closed system. It starts beating out of order. Well, people get stuck in this state, and energy literally leaves the brain and heart in this state. Well, you can teach a person and train them. Just like dancing the salsa. If you keep practicing it, you're going to get better at it.
Yeah.
You keep teaching them how to create that kind of coherence in their heart. Wow, we've found such compelling data to show that when you truly open your heart and it gets coherent, it starts informing the brain. The heart is the creative center, the center of oneness, the center of wholeness. It's our connection to that divine aspect of ourselves. The heart actually tells the brain, it's safe to create now. And the brain goes into these altered states. Sustain that state for an extended period of time. I don't care who you are, and learn how to do that. All of a sudden, the person moves into this beautiful, beautiful, elegant state where they are relaxed in their heart and awake in their brain, instead of stressed and in survival and unconscious and living in a program. And that's when a person begins to see synchronicities, coincidences, opportunities to begin to appear in their lives. So we've got tons of data to show that you can make your brain work better in a short amount of time. We have tons of data to show that in 1 week, if you truly go inward and begin to make those changes, there will be genetic changes in your body in just thousands of different metabolites to suggest that your body's actually in a different environment, in a different life. Now, the key is to learn that information, to retreat from your life, gain the information, gain the tools, and then remember that you're the creator of your life every day. And take a little time out of your busy day to sit down before you grab your cell phone, and take a moment before you get up and run through your routine, and ask yourself the simple question.
Set it up.
What's that?
Like setting up the brain.
Exactly. Say, who do I want to be when I open my eyes? You said it is a process of unlearning and a process of relearning. It's a process of breaking the habit of the old self, and then the process of reinventing the new self. So let me become conscious of my unconscious thoughts. The ones like, I can't, it's too hard, I'll never change. Write those down and become so conscious that they don't slip by your awareness unnoticed.
Yeah.
Write down your behaviors, your habits. How do you speak? Do you complain? Do you blame? Do you make excuses? Stop that today. Become so conscious that you stop doing that. That's the old personality. Look at the emotions. Do I feel guilty? Do I feel sad? Do I suffer? Let me just become aware of them so I can catch myself from defaulting to my old self. Review it enough times, and I promise you, in your waking day, you'll catch that thought, that behavior, that emotion. Then say, who do I want to be? How does a great person think today? What thoughts do I want to fire and wire in my brain? Turns out, with attention and intention, if you keep doing it, you install new circuitry, new hardware in your brain. Repeat it enough times, it becomes automatic. It becomes like a software program. That's the new voice in your head that says, Alex, you can do anything. You program that. Then if you sit down and you say, how am I going to be with my children? How am I going to be at work? How am I going to be in traffic? How am I going to be in this potentially stressful situation? And you begin to close your eyes and rehearse mentally who you're going to be when you open your eyes. The research shows that when you're truly doing that, the brain doesn't know the difference between what you're imagining and the real life experience. If that's the case, if you keep doing that, your brain will look like you already did it. The brain will look like you already experienced it. Now the brain's no longer a record of the past. Now it's a map to the future. Repeat it enough times, and it becomes more automatic and more a software program. You start behaving like a happy person. No magic there. You actually install the program. Then you say, okay, can I teach my body emotionally what my future will feel like before it happens? That means you're not going to wait for your healing to feel gratitude. You're not going to wait for your new relationship to feel love. You're not going to wait for your success to feel empowered. That's waiting for something outside to change your internal state. The creator would say, let me feel the emotion of that future before it happens and open my heart and create heart coherence. The body's so objective that it actually believes it's living in that environment. Now, the research shows in epigenetics that it's the environment that signals the gene. That's research. But the end product of an experience in the environment is an emotion. So it makes sense then that you could actually signal genes ahead of the environment by embracing the emotion. Keep doing that. Your body's going to change to look like it's in a new environment. That's a new personality. You keep doing that, then the disease exists in the old personality. That new personality is creating a new personal reality, and that's when the magic starts to happen in people's lives.
Yeah. One silly question about that. When we fall in love, well, who do we trust? The brain or the heart? That's a silly old question.
Actually, it's a delicate balance between the two. Okay. It's a delicate balance between the two. We take the brain thinks, but the heart knows.
Yeah.
And it requires common sense and pure reason to be able to trust what the heart is telling us. If the heart is saying this doesn't feel right, or gosh, I should really, I should pay a little more attention, it informs the brain. But the brain also informs the heart. So we have to have brain and heart coherence. And when you do, I think we have a healthy balance.
And Dr. Joe, how do you feel about, I know you've been studying, you're a doctor and you know about facts, but what do you think and how do you feel about the power of the brain versus the power of the energy, the outer energy that some people runs through or said, no, I'm run by energy, I'm from energy. What is the difference? Or there is a correlation between the two?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We teach people how to connect to energy with their brains.
Okay.
And when they do, their brains get very, very, very organized. And that invisible field of energy that we can't perceive with our senses, called the quantum field, is actually what it lives within us. It's a very, very center of the atom. It's pure energy, and it's all around us. It's energy that's in the field. And so we teach people how to use their brain to connect to that energy. And when it does connect to that unified field, wow, we see the scale of energy in the brain hundreds of times outside of normal. And the person is having an arousal, but that arousal is not pain. That arousal is not anger. That arousal is not fear. The arousal is ecstasy. They're connecting. Yeah. And that's the moment I want everybody to have.
Well, to wrap it up, why you decided to come to Panama and what do you want Panamanians to get away from you?
Well, look, I've never been to Panama. I have friends that are from Panama. I love Latin American countries. I love Central American countries. I love Mexico. I love all of South America. And Panama is a perfect place. It's the bridge between both those North America and Central America and South America. And it's a central place. And I hope that we can bring cultures from all of those wonderful places, including the United States, for people to come and retreat and be in a beautiful place, an international place where people can really rest and relax and walk away with some tools.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. We're waiting for you here and to rechange, to reset our minds, to be better persons and to heal ourselves. That's what we want. Thank you, Dr. Joe Dispenza. Estuvo aquí con nosotros. Gracias por acompañarnos. Ya saben, ese retreat va a estar aquí en Panamá, así que busquen toda la información para que sean parte de ellos y puedan cambiar su vida. Thank you. Gracias.
Gracias.